Good morning. This morning we're going to look at, we're discussing the hard money facts of moving to live remotely. So here we go with the information straight away. This is hard money facts. So the first thing we're going to discuss in the hard money facts of moving remotely is the looking at the pros and the cons. We're going to start straight away by first looking at the some of the items I've placed here. The one is land. When you first begin to think about moving to live in a remote area from an urban area, the first thing is looking at the facts of the land. Well, in our case, we looked at land. We didn't go through a real estate agent. We actually looked at properties for sale by owners. So for sale by owners. And then the next thing we looked at was location. So we decided to look at location, which is outside our area, but in an area that we'd researched before. We'd looked at the area before and thought about the potentials of that area. So we thought in terms of hard money facts was how far away was that location from where my then office was based. Office was based 45 minutes to an hour. I would say, well, an hour to 45 minutes, yes, because in winter it's harder to get out to those rural areas. And then the other thing we looked at was then how much the cost for fuel, the fuel cost. So if you look at the fuel cost of that, how much the fuel would cost for a return trip. So then you have to look at the type of vehicle you drive, and then the other thing was how often would we go to the office location. So go to the office location once a week, twice a week, 5 days. The cost of that. So that's an hard facts. Then the other major fact was in regard to then the land, the cost of land, because the cost would be, we decided to buy land which is far away from the main highway. So then we'd look at the distance between the highway and the distance of the location of the property. So that's one of the cost. It relates to cost. The land looked at land between 100,000 to 150,000. So if you're looking at land, look at the cost of land with service or land without service. So 8 years ago now, we've lived here 8 years, so that we purchased that land more than 8 years. I would say 10 years. So 10 years of the land purchase being bare and no one living on the land. And then other thing looking at is whether there's service on the land. It's one thing saying the land has nothing on it. It sounds very romantic. It's up in the mountains, old land that was perfect previously for wood cutting, for harvesting forestry. So there was a small road onto the land. You could reach the land from the main road. the road had just become tarmacked by the government, and then that's an indication that the government must have services further up, which is be wood cutting, forestry, and then how much activity is there, forestry activity is there. So that is one thing that we had to look at. So that's a point to look into. And then if there are no services on the land, then looking at what are the costs of services. So costs of services, when I talk about services on the land, we'll think about electricity, hydro. How much would it cost to put hydro on the land? Run the hydro from the main road. In this case, because there's not many houses along the main road, there's one property which we can't see from the land, but you can see as you drive down and get onto the tarmac road that was previous to us coming, that was just a dirt road. So you can see the isolation in terms of services. So there's one electrical post or hydro post. So what's the cost? If you want to look into that, what's the cost of moving the hydro post from where it is? You have to leave the hydro post as it is, but you have to get your link to that hydro post. So we decided that we would take the hydro post across onto our property, and then what does it entail then to get it across to our property? And then when it comes onto our property, then you have to pay for an electrician to connect that service. And then we decided that we would well, we didn't decide, it was someone who's an electrician, and being aware of rural and remote locations, suggested that we asked for hydro to go underneath the earth, 7 feet underneath, and then take all the way up that driveway, 7 feet under, right up towards where the house we estimated the house would be built. So that was in the range of $45,000. So if you count in the facts, you're looking at land between 130 to 150,000 in those times. But we didn't go to 150,000 because the people we chose to go to someone who was set for sale by owner. For sale by owner is very different to for sale by real estate, because you haven't got the real estate percentage to come off the sale. So that is a different level, a change of costs as well. So then the other thing is, if you're on a land where there's no services, that means there's no septic field. So you then have to get a quote and an estimation for a septic field being put in. And in our area of Canada, it involves, I was surprised, but it probably is the same across North America and in other European countries. I don't know for other nations on the earth, but it's maybe similar. The health services here are involved in that, drawing up the plan for the septic and how far a septic can be from a actual house, the dwelling, to where it's placed. Is it placed flat or is it placed underneath? Because that's got something to do with gravity, and how the septic field will operate after that. So that septic field assessment was in itself maybe about $5,000, and then the actual drawing and submission of that septic plan to the health authorities, and then the actual engineer and the person who is going to move that septic establish that septic, that's around $23,000. So you see, that's some of the money facts are building up. And then, of course, then you got the engineer drawing for the house itself. So that is one option. So that going down that option of the engineer drawing for actually a house. And we'd actually purchased a kit. So that kit came with the engineer drawing cost in it. So that kit was in the realm, or in the around 179,000. So that looks, on face value, that looks quite cheap, or cost efficient. But when you begin to add services also, the septic field, the electric, hydro, to those two main services on there, it's key. And then a big area that we had to think about, and I'm hoping that this is helpful to anyone maybe joining in, coming in. If you've got any ideas, any things that you'd like to comment on. The other big thing was the fact that you've got the kit, which has to be traveled, and then you have the kit travels. I mean, when I say travel, it has to be driven on trucks to the location, because where the actual kit is lower down, and this is the first time in this province that they'd had a log house structure of this kind built high up in the mountains where it's so cold, going up to minus 32 down to minus 32 degrees Celsius in winter. So winter can be mild, but when a winter's not mild, you're at minus 32 or lower. So then comes the local authority or the regional district as rules. But you may be in an area, I don't know where you are, but there are areas where these rules and these districts aren't as rigid. They're not so involved in looking at stuff like the engineering drawing and how deep the footing should be. So in this case, even though a footing could be 7 feet, the district planning department decided that the footings should be should be the least 10 feet, because it's going into mountain and backed by, I don't know why they came to that conclusion, but they've decided the footing should be 10 feet down. So you can imagine that there's a cost for that. So if we stick to the hard facts, you're talking about earth moving. So earth moving as part of the building project itself adds cost. So think about where you're going to be, where your land is. You may be thinking about that land or that area, thinking, well, our cost may not be that, because you may have some services buying a piece of land when there's already a service, or where there's already a septic. But when we add it up, when you buy a piece of land and the service is already there, the cost will be probably add up to be quite the same as our cost. When you add that up, the 45,000, the electric the service being put on, the 23,000 for the septic, and then the land being around 130,000. But it all depends where you are, because you may be going so deep into the bush and into area where land will maybe cost less, right? So you those odd facts and costs might be very different to the cost that we're talking about. But the aim of this video is to talk about the odd facts, of looking at what we encountered, and hopefully those may inform other people who are going on this same journey. The other thing that we looked at was checking the well. So when we this far up, we're looking at a well system or a systems underground. So the well was very old. It was there, maybe put there when the land was being subdivided. So not sophisticated anyway, not, you know, for a big family house or anything like that. So you have to think, well, this well, will it serve us? So what we did, we had a company come up and did the timing, checking the speed of the well, how quick the well would refresh itself. So you're saying, well, so virtuous mountain woman. So so the what you see out there and around, there's more knowledge around and cost around moving rurally and from urban than you maybe think about. I'll just go on, and then we can do some talk about a comparative if you were to buy the same house in a urban, what the differences would be. So start looking at that. And the other big thing that we have to think about was land clearing wood on the land. So my husband, he is good with a chainsaw. He's good amongst trees and clearing and to some extent. But then we came to a point where when you're looking at an acre of land or 2 acres of land being cleared, you need someone who's got the equipment, big equipment, or a diversity of equipment to focus on the land clearing. So hiring someone for that. So there's 2 parts of the land for clearing, which is the for clearing for storage, about half an acre, and then clearing for the house and around the house. So you're looking at, when you actually look at cold facts, cold figures, you're looking around 30,000, unless you have a friend or you are people who have those type of equipment to do that type of work yourself. Because my husband stopped doing some of that himself because it becomes dangerous. You have to have knowledge. We're going to show some videos in the coming weeks about that whole time of clearing the land. But it's really important to note that trees are beautiful, but they're also dangerous. So we need someone who has the skills and the ability to clear and do the clearing. So I'm looking at who's coming in, visiting this community this morning. Have you, as a black woman, done any such work? The assumption is sometimes that we don't have the ability, but the fact is that many of us, we do, because we have to have those abilities. We don't have a husband, we don't have a partner, but we've made the choice for the lifestyle that we have, and that's why we come into this channel. That's why we come in to share information. So good morning, good evening for those who are joining. So if we go back on what we discussed so far, as for anyone coming in, new is that we're talking about the money facts of moving from urban to rural. So we talked about the location, that if we need to go to town for anything, what the cost would be. We looked at winter driving and summer driving, the comparative. Then we look at the purchase of land. Land is more expensive in certain postcode areas, because it doesn't matter how far you live, you're still a postcoded area. And with the area I'm just recapping now, we're about 130 to 150,000. We'd set a budget. So, and also we didn't say how big the property would be. We just happened to come into an area where the subdivided property was 20 acres. So you could be in a area where the subdivided area, plots of land is the proper word, I would say, or acreage size could be 5 or 10. So then that would also change the type of cost that you would have. And we looked at services like hydro, electricity. In our situation, those because there's only one electric pole that we could come off because we were so high up. It was about $45,000 for the electrician to do their work. But I think if you had to get a post itself from the hydro company, that's another level of cost, which has to be calculated. We didn't have to calculate that cost because there was one electric post. So, and then we looked at if there's no service on the land, if there's no septic, around 23,000. That was 8 years ago. So I don't know now what that would be. Probably be a lot more. Then we talked about, because we chose a kit, and this is where I want to have a bit of a different look, and maybe you as viewers, you thinking about that cost and how to break up that cost. Well, the electric services, but you do have choice in types of the type of habitation that you gonna have, the type of house. The kit sounds wonderful, and it's very misleading, because a kit is really, in this area, a big house. It's 1,400 square feet on top. And then we decided, had to make a decision as whether we want a basement or not. That doubles that size to 2,800 square feet. 1,400 square feet on top, 1,400 on the bottom. Okay, so that itself is another cost, because you've got basement, and then you've got the house above. But you've got to justify and do the pros and the cons of why you have a basement and why you wouldn't have a basement. So those two things, cost. I don't know how much cost related that is, but I suppose there is cost, right? But the reason why I chose a basement is because I think in the winter months and storage in rural, yes, you have outhouses, out buildings that you have outside, but about living inside. And because I'm a businesswoman, so I want a space where I can have an office space away from the upstairs living. And then I've thought one day I may want an Airbnb, so I factored that in. If I want to have an Airbnb in a remote area, would I want everything on one floor? And all the services within the house, the the heating systems and water, because anytime you have wells, there's systems inside the basement of the house to manage the water supply. So I had to think about all of those things. So it feels like I'm going a bit off tangent, but in fact I'm not, because that's the reality of rural living, is the well, managing water. And then from my experience prior, I had a house where the basement had no windows, had one window. That really limits how you can live and use that basement space. So I decided, you know what, this time the basement would be a walk-in basement, so that you all the windows in the basement are above above the ground level, so that from each room you can see outside, and from each room light will come in. So that is something which is really important to think about, and about how the cost inside that house would be. And let's just stay for a moment on the dwelling itself. So you could decide of a kit, but really a kit in our situation, using Western Canadian hemlock, using Canadian, as much Canadian products as we can, but the fundamentals of being Western Canadian hemlock is that it's not the big, really large round logs that you'd see, because they themselves have a different expense. They themselves have other things that you have to think about. So by using hemlock, and the other option would be to have a unit or a man-made structure that you bring on the land. And the difference with that in terms of cold cost, when I look back now, and this is only series 1 of this discussion about odd facts about the cost of living remotely, is that the thing is with that is that I think in my mind now is that you would, by having a unit, a house made, a man-made construction, is that you control the cost. I think the costs are controlled more. I'm not saying there'd be no cost, but they're controlled more because you don't have a builder then. Because when you have the kit, you do have to have a builder, a licensed builder in this region area that we are in, to oversee that project and project manage it, and manage how all the services are put in, and the floors, and the walls, and you still need carpenters, you still need engineers, you still need people to install the mechanicals, and the electric to the house, pull through. You do that in any unit that you would have, but this is when you do the log house. It's same as building any other house. Okay, so you have all of that to be done, and then because you're in the mountain and you're so deep footings, you do have the authorities sending people and engineers to review what has been done and to calculate what has been done. And then the other big thing, we talked about the septic, but then you have to have water. I'm hoping that this is proven not just to be a lecture to people, but a real good discussion that is of value, because you have water to bring to a house. When you bring in water to a house, it's really a big thing when you bring in water in, because then we have another piece of land to be cleared for water, and then to bring the water to the house from the well. Then we have a water line, having to establish a water line. So that in itself is another cost. And I think when I'm looking back at the cost, that was about $7,000 altogether. And we had one people that said, oh, it'll be 5,000. But then the first quote was 7,000. And it turned out to be 7,000. So that cost is higher than the first cost quote. And I think sometimes people quote in a very expert way to connect you, and then it's like, okay, we're going along now, this isn't what it looked like. And then with water you need another strategy when you're remote like this. So what is the strategy? Well, we'd watched some YouTube videos as well while we were looking at our building and stuff like that. And one of the strategy we found was that having a water cisterns underground was another brilliant way of making sure that if ever the well was not running and functioning well, we could bring, excuse the pun, but we could bring in city water. Because if rainfall doesn't happen as good and take place as good every year, that means your well won't be as good as it can be. So you have to have another strategy. Okay, so then I'm looking at the other cost. We could be here all day, but we only have a limited time, so we can just take as much as we can. So you're gonna have to have the kitchen and bathroom. The biggest expense for people like us is not furniture and all of that type of thing, because we've had our whole house before. We've been married, but at that time we were married, so 22 years of marriage. So we lived together many years, and have family together. So for us, it's not the plates and the things like that. That's, we're not new home people. So what's the biggest thing for us? Well, one of the biggest thing for us was the services to actual kitchen, buying the range, buying the faucets, buying the right type of sink, what type of worktops we're gonna have, so ensuring that these are environmentally friendly things was important to me, important to my husband too, because we don't want to, in building a house, we don't want so much things to impact on the environment for the long term. So we chose not to have marble worktops. So we chose different material. And then the bath, for guest bath, bathroom, and then of an ensuite bathroom for the main or the primary or the principal area, which was me and my husband, bedroom where me and my husband would live. And we chose to have open plan in terms of kitchen and dining, but to have a separate living room, so that what difference does that make to cost? I'm not sure it makes that much difference to cost, but I think that's more about choice, so that we feel that after we've cooked in the kitchen all day, and we've dined in there, and we've sat in there, and we've enjoyed whatever we're doing in that area. It's work. In the kitchen is lovely, but there's a lot of work in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning, washing plates and stuff. We decided that we wanted a separate living room, a separate living area, so that we can come at the end of the day and just sit down in that area and say, the day's finished. We've enjoyed that part of our day, and that is done. And now we're gonna relax for the evening and just have downtime, sit together. I we chose not to have a television for quite a few years. I would say maybe coming on to maybe 10 years of not having a television. So even though we have a television screen, it's to not to have a television loads of channels running, because I think one of the beautiful things about choosing to live rurally, remotely, is that we choose to just be read. As you can see, there's loads of books and loads of magazines around, but this is my office. But in the living area, I'm surrounded by some books, and just not as many things to, be about just watching television. Because for me, the part of television is buying all. We used to buy all the how many channels from wherever, and we probably didn't watch television very much. So that's another cost that we took off. The other thing is, because you're remote, the main telephone services don't come this far. No way. So we use our cell phone, the mobile phone, but there's no phone lines this way. So there's none. So it's what you can feed off a main telephone line, or not line, but the towers, cell towers. And then the other big thing for a lot of people who are moving rurally, is, well, how on earth are we going to manage with Wi-Fi? Well, that wasn't great to begin with. It was fantastic to begin with, and then everything went down quite significantly, because the system that we used, we were told, oh, you would be the last one. But then as people move more, we were the last plot of land in this part of the area, but and there's other plots of land further down, I think. So people were coming in, and especially after COVID, lots more people came into these areas. Lots more. There's a school bus route, of course, and that's why they tarmac the road down there, the bottom. But there became as land and houses became available, more people with children started to come to this area as well. So that was very, very interesting. And then, so we're looking at those hard cold facts. Then, we look at one of the parts of the building cost, was, I think the builder initially said about 245,000 or 345,000, and then that began to change. So if you begin to add up, as we've talked through this whole discussion in this video, in this live feed, you begin to look at those figures begin to add up a lot. You're nearly at $250,000. If you're going to follow every change that the planning people decided need to be, and the kit is wonderful, it's set, there's no change in that price because you bought the kit, but the building itself and the everything that related to building, and the licensed builder, in this area you have to have a licensed builder. You may live in an area where you don't have to have a licensed builder, right? And that changes everything as well. And also in some places you can take a course related to building and project management and get a certificate so you can build your own home. And we were signed up for that, and then the rules changed again. So in order to do that, you'd probably spend maybe 6 months on that course before you can actually do anything. And then you realize that your expertise is not such at such a level, so you still need to bring in professionals and trades and the costs of trades. So when you have one builder project managing and bringing in all the trades, at least you have a set cost, or you can sit down with the builder and begin to say, no, I don't want that, let's take this away, or let's take that away, let's prioritize this, and not that, right? So, and if you decide, yes, I want a basement, when you say, yes, I want a basement, you start to say, oh, well, you need a carpenter to build the stairs to code, and everything has to be done by code. And then you say, I want just a small deck, but everything, even like a deck, carries expense. So it's really important to in this, look back on this live video and make some notes about what's value to you or not value to you. And for my subscribers and for those who are visiting, you may have ideas or things that have happened in your journey that may be helpful to someone else who is looking to take this journey, because it's a journey that we're taking. So we looked from the land right to the purchasing of the kit, looking at the hydro electricity services, the septic field, the well, engineered drawings, land clearing equipment, or land clearing person, maybe a woman, maybe a man, with those skills, understand forestry, understand trees, professional falling of trees, clearing area for the property itself, to build the house itself, and also clearing areas for storage buildings or storage. These are key things. And then when you say, well, look at how expensive this is, look how this is, look how hard it is. Well, if you put all of that money, all of that finance into just selling your house in an urban area and move into another house in an urban area, there may not be much difference with the type of money that you spend. But the difference is when you come in rural, remote, you come in with a vision, with an idea of a lifestyle. So it's, when you're looking at the money, yes, it's money to some degree, but it's not just about money. It's about changing your lifestyle. So what you're buying, or you're changing, is one lifestyle to another lifestyle. And the thing is, a big thing is not just about money and cost. It's about, what's your vision? What is it that you want? What is driving you to live in a rural area, right? So I'm driven because of the quietness. I'm driven because it gives me a life where I'm of some level of solitude, being surrounded by trees and wildflowers, and having a space to live in, which is calm and away from noise. So I was discussing this with my husband a few days ago, and saying, when you're building, it's never easy. It's not easy on your bank account. It's not easy on your relationship. You have to form good professional relationships with quite a few people that maybe you wouldn't need to if you're just moving from a urban house to a urban house, right? So, and you also have to have because the vision is such. Sometimes what we were saying the other day is that the vision is what if you're clear about your vision and your goals about being remote, that keeps you going, because the adapting to the life can be very hard. And get into a space where you have a level of peace in this environment, it takes time. And I think if you look back, if I look back and I'm honest about it, that whole relationship of the guys coming with the concrete, pouring concrete into the earth, seeing pictures of them, taking pictures as we go along, seeing one log being put on top of another log, and just two logs in density up, and standing on top and staring out, and there's nothing there. The wall is only 2 log high. So all of that is creating a relationship with the environment around you, which is nothing about money or funds or cost. So there's other things going on as the building is going on. You're getting a relationship and connection, and getting an eye for seeing things that you would normally not see if you're in an urban area, and you're beginning to get a level of trust of what is around you. So we talked about the hard cost. The cost comes if you checking the math and doing the math. The cost is coming about $500,000 in on a set, building a house from a kit with a basement. And so it's literally the same as if you were going to move to a house in an urban area. But you have a sense of adventure because you're embarking on doing things that you've never done before. So, but if you have a man-made house, which is, set already with areas for services and everything, you can keep that cost down. You could make that cost in the end half of the cost, and maybe in some situations maybe a third, because we know people who've done that. They've just bought a double trailer or a trailer, and trailers can look amazing these days, right, with all the services, and they just bought a second-hand one and got it bought across from one province to the other, and they've just set it up and began on the land of doing on the concrete, and because everything is already in there, the cost is about a third of the cost, really, of $250,000 build. So the thing is not to think, well, this is beyond me, but to start to think, what are the choices that I would make or do if I was in my vision to go and live in a rural and remote setting. This is the type of thing that I can afford, and this is where I'm gonna go. And I'm not gonna have a big house. I'm gonna have a smaller unit, because I can maybe add on a unit or more to the unit at a later date, and I can see what I really want to do as the years go by. So you don't have to start large, but I think in terms of looking at the services and the well, the hydroelectricity, telephone, Wi-Fi. There's so much more choices now than when we came, because when we came, we had this awful situation with this thing that was supposed to be Wi-Fi. It was brilliant, and after about a year, 2 years, it went ridiculous. So now we're using Starlink. Would I want to change from Starlink? Yes, I would. I mean, the politics around the whole founder of Starlink isn't great. It's not what I would choose now if I go back. But I think now, as more people are thinking about the satellite, there might be more options for satellite, and if there are and they're solid, I would definitely move along. But at the moment, in this where we are really remote, that seems to be the best way to receive Wi-Fi, because there are other services, but they tend to be quite weak the higher you get, because we're 3,500 feet above sea level. So the higher you get, but maybe when you're lower, you may have access to a more reliable sources. But then again, it all depends on how remote you are. When you decide to make this type of remoteness your way of life and add up the cost, your Wi-Fi and other services, Wi-Fi isn't bad. It's about $156 a month now, where it used to be 120. So it's as fast as being in town, and is competent as well. So I'm not complaining about that. So in summary then, we see the pros and the cons. We see there's more choices. We see some of the hard figures, but it need not be the same for everyone. Everyone can pace or make decisions based on your own cost, your own finances, and maybe start small and then build up to what you want at a later date. But making that move, I'm hoping that this live feed, this video, you can come back and watch it and see if there's any things that you can gather and garner to help yourself along your journey to move from an urban lifestyle to a rural. And hopefully, because someone else has talked it through, you may look at things and think, well, it's not as bad as I thought. Or you can think, well, thank you for explaining this, because now there's pieces that I can learn to manage the way that I manage things. We all manage things in our own way. So thank you for coming into this live feed. I'm hoping trusting this of value to anyone that comes along. And if there's anything else that we can do or share to help you along, we will do. I will have a practical, more visual sharing of the journey, but that takes a while to go into the old videos and old pictures to bring that out, and that will be available. I think if you look out, that will be available on Black Woman Mountain Living channel, and some of it will be available on the Virtuous Mountain Woman channel as well. So I thank you for coming in this early as well. I tend to do the videos early because then I have the business day in front of me as well. So thank you for coming, and look forward to sharing another video with you next week. Thank you for the live feed. Will be try to be on a weekly basis. Thank you. Goodbye.